Okay, welcome to chapter 35, part 2. I was just talking about a possible tricolon. Nimii verbis linguae feroces nemo scira et omnes ad firmare. It's always problematic how we describe Tacitus's stylistic intent. Of course, there was no punctuation originally at all. So a lot of this is surmise. A lot of the punctuation is surmise. Nimii verbis linguae feroces. Those four words happily go together, as I've said, because of the chiasmus. But also I think it builds to the tricolon, the third element, nemo scira et omnes ad firmare. That also, of course, demonstrates antithesis between nemo and omnes as opposites. But it's, at the end of the day, however we describe this, it is wonderful Latin. Tacitus suggests, again using historic infinitives, scira and ad firmare, that no one knew anything, et omnes ad firmare, and everybody swore it was the case. Notice it's a tiny thing, but it really does matter. The et. Surely the predictable thing is to say no one knew anything, but. So Tacitus, wanting to avoid expectation, he wants to be paradoxical, because paradox means against expectation. So instead of the but, he has et, just to draw our attention to this, to make us think a little more about the words he's put on the page, or he's speaking from the lectern. So truth, of course, is the first casualty of the Roman imperial period. And with nobody able to know for sure, and of course there's a mass crowd situation which makes things all the more confusing, but with nobody able to know anything for sure, then speculation is rife. And these people, in their attempt to desperately please Galba, all claim that it is true that Otho's dead. And then the result of this tidal wave of misinformation, of feigned loyalty, is Donec, and afterwards to the very end, until Victus, overcome. Another antithesis now. Overcome by two things. Overcome by a complete lack of verifiable information, and overcome by the total agreement of people who were completely wrong, erantium, a substantive participle. Galba, as ever the victim, as ever passive, as ever accusative, not technically here, but he cannot withstand this tidal wave of pretended loyalty this invasion of the palace. Galba sumpto thorace takes up his breastplate, and with these words we feel that Galba is about to launch himself as a hero, burst out of the palace and show himself to the crowd as emperor, as leader. But he can't do it. He can't physically do it because of the strength of the crowd in rushing, and he can't do it, of course, because of his old age. And his physical frailty. So there's immediate disappointment. There's immediate failure. Galba straps on his breastplate, but not able to resist because of his old age and his physical frailty. Not able to resist the inrushing crowd because of his old age and physical frailty. Sella levaretur, the last two words of this huge periodic sentence. He's carried out in a litter. How unheroic that he should have to be taken outside in the Roman equivalent of a disability scooter. Poor Galba. Can't he get anything right? Well, I think, yes, he can actually, and we're about to be surprised because Tacitus is the master of surprise. So, just as we expect Galba to be at the end, he surprises us with this little anecdote, which is told in just simple text. And we've had in the first half of the chapter all the complexity that Tacitus can bring to bear on a sentence. And yet this second half of chapter 35 is simply recounted and smacks of truth, that it did actually happen. So let's get to grips with this. So he met in the palace. He encountered on the palace steps Julius Atticus, the bodyguard. Tacitus loves this verb. Brandishing a bloody sword. Shouting that he'd killed Otho, that Otho had been killed by him. And Galba said, my fellow soldier, don't forget, he's the one that can say this. He's the one with a military pedigree. Quis Iussit? Who ordered this? So right to the end, Otho is the military man. In a finely run military unit, soldiers don't think for themselves. Soldiers certainly don't go thinking for themselves and then demonstrating that to senior officers. So, fellow soldier, who ordered this? And almost surprisingly, Tacitus bigs up Galba here. He said this with ablative of description, with a remarkable enthusiasm. So add plus the gerundive here, demonstrating purpose, with a remarkable attitude towards restricting military indiscipline. Intrepid before those that would threaten him. Incorruptus, utterly incorruptible. Adversus blandientes. I'm sure that should be ES technically. Notice that, yeah, I've just checked, it should be. There are two versions of the accusative plural present participle. Blandientes is what we've got in our book, but it's very often written as IS instead of ES. And most grammars will give you both forms. So that is an accusative. Adversus takes the accusative. And then we read this and are, I think, shocked when we reflect on what Tacitus is saying here. What does this read like? It reads like an epitaph. And so it should, because Galba is going out to die. In the next few minutes, Galba is going to die. And it's almost as if Tacitus here, after all his criticism, his biographical assassination of Galba, is almost relenting and allowing the man a decent epitaph.